Hello, everyone, and welcome to Story Orbit. And I'm Jessica, and today I am super excited because we're going to talk about Vienna, one of the most beautiful cities in Europe.
And I'm Tom. Hi, everybody. I'm already jealous because I know Jessica was there recently and I was not.
That's true, I went last summer, and honestly, I fell in love with the place. Vienna has this amazing mix of elegance, history, music, and really good food. I visited the Hofburg Palace, which was like the center of the empire for centuries. Then I went to Schönbrunn Palace, which was the summer residence. And I also went to the Sisi Museum.
Sisi, you mean the Empress Elizabeth, right? The one who married Franz Joseph?
Exactly. Her nickname was Sisi with an S, not Z. I also went to a classical music concert of Mozart in the Musikverein. It was magical. Imagine sitting in this golden hall, listening to violins and flutes, and you feel like you were in another century.
That sounds like a movie. I only stopped in Vienna once when I had a connecting flight, but I didn't see anything. I just stayed in the airport. So now I'm regretting it.
You need to go, Tom. It's not just about the palaces and the music. I also visited the Austrian National Library. There is a room called the Prunksaal, or the Grand Hall, which looks like a dream, with frescoes on the ceiling and old books everywhere. And then I saw the famous Lipizzaner horses.
Wait, explain the word frescoes. Some people might not know it.
Good point. Frescoes are paintings made directly on the wall or ceiling while the plaster is still wet, so it kind of becomes part of the wall. For example, Michelangelo's Sistine Chapel in Rome is full of frescoes. So in Vienna, when you look up in the library, you see these painted ceilings that are hundreds of years old.
Nice. And you said you saw horses. Were they just horses or something special?
They are really special. They are the Lipizzaner stallions, very famous in Vienna. They are white horses that perform in the Spanish riding school, doing these elegant dances.
I think I've seen videos of them. They sort of jump and move almost like ballet.
Exactly. It's like horse ballet. And then, of course, the food. I had schnitzel, which is like a breaded meat cutlet, and I also had a hot dog, but in Vienna they call it Wurstel or sausage, and they prepare it in a special bread. They also have amazing cakes, like the Sachertorte, a chocolate cake with apricot jam inside.
You're making me hungry, and I like that you said schnitzel is a cutlet. Maybe we should explain cutlet.
Yes, of course. A cutlet is a thin piece of meat, usually from chicken, pork, or veal, that is cooked in a certain way. For example, if you fry it with breadcrumbs like in schnitzel, it becomes crunchy. In English, you can say chicken cutlet or pork cutlet.
That's interesting because I think in many languages we don't have that exact word. So English learners should really remember cutlet.
Absolutely. And one thing I loved is how Vienna feels very classical, but modern at the same time.
Did you go to a cafe? Vienna is famous for its coffee houses.
Yes, I went to the Sacher Hotel, which is famous for the Sachertorte, a type of chocolate cake that was invented there.
Oh, right. That's the original place where they created the Sachertorte, isn't it?
Exactly. I had a slice of Sachertorte with whipped cream and a coffee. It's a rich chocolate cake with a layer of apricot jam inside and a chocolate glaze on top.
I think Sachertorte might be a tricky word for learners because it's German.
True. Sachertorte is the original name in German, and in English, we still use that name. So if you're learning English, you don't translate it, you just say Sachertorte.
So Vienna is food, palaces, music, and history. Not bad.
Exactly, but I also want to explain something about language. When I said earlier, I fell in love with the place, that is an expression. It doesn't mean literally romantic love, it means I liked it very much. I felt a deep connection. You can say, I fell in love with that city, or I fell in love with that book. It's not about people, it's about how much you enjoyed something.
That's good to point out because sometimes learners take things too literally.
Right. And another expression I used was in another century. I didn't mean I traveled in time, of course. It just means it felt very different, like I was transported to the past.
I think learners should also notice how you used I went to so many times. That's a simple past tense form, used for actions completed in the past. Like I went to Vienna, I went to the library, I went to a concert. Sometimes learners confuse it with I have gone or I have been.
Exactly. So I went is for a specific event in the past. For example, I went to the supermarket yesterday. I have been is more about experience, like I have been to Paris, meaning at some point in my life.
That's a really good distinction.
And Tom, honestly, you should plan a trip because even if you only stay for a weekend, you can see a lot.
I want to, but I'm always worried about language when I travel. Did you need to speak German?
Not really. In Vienna, many people speak English, especially in restaurants, museums, and hotels. Of course, it's polite to learn a few words like danke, which means thank you. But in general, you can survive with English.
That's the relief. Because some listeners may also feel nervous about traveling when they don't know the local language. But English is very useful. That's why they are listening to us.
Exactly. And Vienna is perfect for English learners because many of the tourist signs and brochures are translated into English.
Another thing, when you mention concert, some learners confuse concert with contest. So let's clarify.
Good idea. A concert is a performance of music. For example, a rock concert, a classical concert, or a jazz concert. A contest is a competition like a singing contest or a cooking contest. They sound similar, but they are very different.
That's the kind of confusion that makes funny mistakes. Imagine someone saying, I went to a Mozart contest. That sounds very strange.
Exactly. Another funny thing is the food words. For example, the word hot dog. In Vienna, they sometimes put the sausage inside a hollowed out bread roll.
And English learners might think hot dog literally means a warm animal dog, but of course it doesn't. It's a sausage in bread.
So, Tom, after hearing all of this, are you ready to finally visit Vienna?
Definitely. I want to see those palaces, eat schnitzel, and maybe pretend I'm listening to Mozart in a golden hall.
That's the spirit. And for our listeners, remember when you travel and experience a new culture, it's not only about history, it's also about learning new words, expressions, and ways of using English to describe your experience.
Now, we're going to dive into Vienna's past during the time of Emperor Franz Joseph and Empress Elisabeth, also known as Sisi. I really love history.
I'm ready. I know some things from visiting the museums, but I'm curious to hear more details.
Great. Let's start with Franz Joseph himself. He was Emperor of Austria for a very long time, from 1848 until 1916. That's almost 68 years. Imagine having the same leader for that long.
Wow, most people don't even live that long.
Exactly. He became emperor when he was only 18. And the funny thing is, he was not supposed to be emperor at first. His uncle had to leave the throne because of a revolution, and then suddenly Franz Joseph became the ruler.
That must have been a shock for an 18-year-old.
Definitely. Now, let's explain the word throne. The throne is the special chair where a king, queen, or emperor sits. But when we say the throne in English, it also means the power or the position of ruling. For example, he inherited the throne means he became the king, not just that he got a chair.
That's a good point. It's like a symbol.
Exactly. Now, Franz Joseph's life was very connected to three women. One was his mother, Archduchess Sophie. The second was his wife, Elisabeth or Sisi, and then their children who had complicated lives.
I remember seeing in the Sisi Museum that Sophie, the mother, had a really strong personality.
Yes, Sophie was like the classic strict mother-in-law. She controlled many things in the palace even after Franz Joseph was emperor. She wanted to make sure everything was done in the proper way.
And Sisi didn't like that, right?
Exactly. Sissy was very different. She was young, beautiful, and free-spirited. She loved poetry, horse riding, and traveling. But Sophie wanted her to be a traditional empress, focused only on duties and children. So there was constant tension.
Let's explain free-spirited.
Good idea. Free-spirited means someone who likes to live without too many rules. Someone who loves freedom and doesn't want to be controlled. For example, a person who decides to travel the world without a plan, or an artist who paints whatever they want, is free-spirited.
That sounds exactly like Sisi.
Right. Now, about their children. Franz Joseph and Sisi had 4 children, Sophie, Gisela, Rudolph, and Marie Valerie. But sadly, the first daughter, Sophie, died very young from an illness when she was only 2 years old.
That's heartbreaking.
It was. Now the second daughter, Gisela, grew up and married a Bavarian prince. She had a quieter life compared to her brother Rudolph.
Oh, yes. Rudolph is the one with the tragic story, right?
Correct. Crown Prince Rudolph was the only son, so he was supposed to be the next emperor. But he didn't get along with his father. Franz Joseph was very conservative, meaning he liked to keep traditions and old rules. Rudolph was more liberal, meaning he wanted reforms and changes.
Let's explain those words. Conservative and liberal.
Sure, conservative means preferring to keep traditions, old ways, and not change too much. For example, a conservative person might say, we should always celebrate holidays the same way as before. Liberal means open to new ideas and changes. For example, a liberal person might say, let's try a new way of doing things. These words are often used in politics, but they can also describe personality.
That helps a lot. So Rudolph and Franz Joseph had opposite ideas.
Yes, and sadly, Rudolph's life ended tragically. In 1889, he died in Maryland, together with his lover Baroness Elisabeth Sarah. It was a scandal.
I heard about that. Some say it was suicide, others say maybe it was murder.
Right, historians still debate it. But officially, it was considered a suicide, and it shocked the empire because he was the crown prince, the future emperor.
That must have been a huge problem for the dynasty.
Yes, and it also left Sisi devastated. She never really recovered from the loss of her son.
So what about the youngest daughter, Marie Valerie?
Marie Valerie was sometimes called the only child of Sisi because she was the one Sisi really raised herself. With the first children, the mother-in-law Sophie had taken control. But by the time Marie Valerie was born, Sisi decided to be more involved. She was very close to her.
That makes sense. She must have wanted at least one child she could really raise on her own.
Exactly. Now let's go back to the relationship between Franz Joseph and Sisi. It was complicated. Franz Joseph truly loved her, but he was also very busy with state affairs. He was always working, signing documents, meeting ministers. He was like a workaholic.
Let's explain. Workaholic.
A workaholic is a person who works all the time and almost cannot stop working. For example, someone who stays in the office until midnight every day and works on weekends is a workaholic. It's a mix of work and alcoholic, meaning addicted to work.
That's a useful word. So Franz Joseph was busy with work, and Sisi wanted freedom.
Exactly. She spent a lot of time traveling, sometimes far away from Vienna. She went to Hungary, to Greece, to Switzerland. She even learned Hungarian and supported the Hungarian people, which was unusual for an Austrian empress.
She must have been very intelligent to learn languages like that.
She was. She wrote poetry in German and loved literature. But at the same time, she was unhappy with her role as empress. She felt trapped.
That word trapped is important. It means feeling like you cannot escape from a situation, like being in a cage.
Exactly. For example, you can say, I feel trapped in this job if you don't like your work but cannot leave it. That's how Sisi felt in the palace.
Poor Sisi. She sounds like a modern woman living in the wrong century.
That's a very good description. She cared a lot about her beauty too. She had very long hair that reached almost to the floor. She spent hours every day maintaining it.
I saw portraits of her in the museum. She looks stunning.
Yes, stunning means very beautiful. So beautiful that it surprises you. Like when you see a sunset that makes you stop and say, wow, that's stunning.
That's perfect vocabulary for Sisi.
Now, the sad ending. In 1898, while she was traveling in Geneva, Switzerland, Sisi was assassinated by an Italian anarchist named Luigi Lucchini. He attacked her with a small knife. At first, she didn't even realize she was injured, but then she collapsed and died.
That's so tragic. After all this sadness in her life, she died in such a violent way.
Exactly. And Franz Joseph lived almost 20 more years after her, continuing to rule. People said he never really recovered from losing her.
This family had so much drama. It sounds like a TV series.
Yes, and in fact, many movies and TV series have been made about Sisi. She became almost a legend, a romantic figure in European history.
Let's pause for a second to explain something. You said legend. In English, legend has two meanings. One is a traditional story, like King Arthur. The other is a famous person who is admired. For example, Michael Jordan is a basketball legend. So Sisi is a legend in the sense of being remembered and admired.
Exactly. And another word we used a lot was tragic. Tragic means something very sad, usually with a bad ending. Like a tragic accident, a tragic love story, or a tragic hero.
Learners should also notice how many times we use the past tense because we are telling a story about history. Words like was, died, loved, spent, traveled. That's how you tell historical narratives in English.
That's true. So, if you want to practice English, try retelling a story from history using the past tense.
Good idea. So, Tom, if you had to choose, who do you think is more interesting, Franz Joseph or Sisi?
For me, Sisi, because she was complicated, rebellious, and mysterious. She represents the conflict between tradition and modernity.
I agree. Franz Joseph was important politically, but Sisi is the one people still remember emotionally.
Exactly. And their story also shows the difficulties of royal families, that life in a palace is not always happy.
That's something our listeners can take away. History is not just names and dates, it's also human stories, relationships, and emotions.
And before we close, let's do a quick review of the vocabulary and expressions we explained today, because that's the best way to remember them.
Right. So first we had frescoes, which are paintings on wet plaster, like the ceilings in the Austrian National Library.
Then cutlet, which is a thin piece of meat like the schnitzel.
We also explained, I fell in love with, which doesn't mean romantic love, but means you really like something a lot.
And in another century, which is just a way of saying something feels like the past, not actual time travel.
Don't forget concert and contest. One is music, the other is competition. Easy to mix up, but very different.
In the history part, we had throne, meaning both the chair and the position of ruling.
Then, free-spirited, a person who doesn't want too many rules and loves freedom.
We also looked at conservative and liberal. Conservative means keeping traditions. Liberal means open to change.
And workaholic, someone addicted to working all the time.
Plus, trapped, when you feel stuck in a situation and cannot escape.
And stunning, which means extremely beautiful, like Sisi in her portraits.
Finally, legend, which can mean an old story or a very famous, admired person.
Perfect. So today, we didn't just travel to Vienna. We also traveled through English vocabulary.
And that's exactly what we want for our listeners, to learn words you can really use while enjoying stories.
So thank you everyone for joining us on Story Orbit N. Bye!
Keep practicing, keep exploring, and keep orbiting English. See you next time.